Let's look at passage 3. Starting in 1957, Noam Chomsky proclaimed a new doctrine. Language, the most human of all attributes, was innate. The grammatical faculty was built into the infant brain, and your average 3-year-old was not a mere apprentice in the great enterprise of absorbing English from his or her parents, but a linguistic genius. What he means, why this is in phrases, linguistic genius, because he already contains the insights and knowledge intrinsically, instinctively उसके पास knowledge of learning language है, उसको already language के बारे में बहुत कुछ आता है, and it is not something जो उसको वो सीख रहा है, it is more already there, potential बाहर निकाला जा रहा है by him absorbing English or whatever other language. Since this message was couched in terms of Chomskyan theoretical linguistics in discourse so opaque that it was nearly incomprehensible even to some scholars, many people did not hear it. Basically, what it is saying is Chomsky came up with the idea, but because it was communicated using such high level, high funda words or high funda terminology that scholar भी नहीं समझ पा रहे थे. It definitely did not become a part of mainstream discourse. ऐसी चलते फिरते water cooler talk का part नहीं हुआ ये. Now, in a brilliant, witty and altogether satisfying book, Chomsky's colleague Steven Pinker has brought Mr. Chomsky's findings to every man. Basically, Chomsky was very technical in his writing style. Pinker has written it in a style that can be consumed by masses. Many more people can understand and comprehend the argument that Chomsky was trying to make. Okay. In The Language Instinct, he has gathered persuasive data from such diverse fields as cognitive neuroscience, developmental psychology, and speech therapy to make his points. And when he disagrees with Chomsky, he tells you so. Okay. Can you understand? This line has two implications. One, that he has used Chomsky's work. He has tried to translate it into a form that is more consumable by the general population. At the same time, he has not translated the book. His work is not limited to translation or abridged version of what Chomsky has done. He has added input to it by bringing in data from other fields, and there are points where he disagrees with Chomsky, and he has also mentioned that. So it is not simply a translation. ऐसा नहीं है कि English में लिखा है, हिंदी में लिखा है. It is more, this book, original book is there. Yes, he has brought in the perspective of Chomsky in simpler words. In addition to that, he has brought in his own perspective, his own additions, his own input to it that makes it better, or that adds value to whatever information he's trying to pass on. For Mr. Chomsky and Mr. Pinker, somewhere in the human brain, there is a complex set of neural circuits that have been programmed with super rules, making up what Mr. Chomsky calls universal grammar, and that these rules are unconscious and instinctive. Okay. दिमाग के किसी कोने में there is a small इलाका जहां पे ग्रामर के रूल्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, एंड यूनिवर्सल ग्रामर, एवरीवन इज अवेयर ऑफ दिस. हर किसी के लैंग्वेज के अंदर सेम सेट ऑफ रूल्स से ये ऑपरेशन चल रहा है. A half century ago, this would have been poo-pooed as a black box theory. So, poo-pooed as a black box theory, since one could not actually pinpoint this grammatical faculty in a specific part of the brain or describe its functioning. Basically, समझ रहे हो, black box theory या the generic argument against theories is, अगर साबित नहीं कर सकते, then all this is an idea. You can't say one way or the other कि ये valid है कि invalid है. You can make assumptions, you can make क्या बताए, implications, but this is definitely not a part of scientific discourse. बस theoretical काम चल रहा है. So, and poo-pooed का मतलब यहाँ पे is a very informal way of saying criticized. Okay. Since one could not actually pinpoint this grammatical faculty in a specific part of a brain or describe its functioning. तुम कह रहे हो कि दिमाग में एक यूनिवर्सल ग्रामर का इलाका है, ना हम चेक कर सकते हैं, ना कोई प्रूफ है कि ऐसा इलाका एग्जिस्ट करता है, बस तुमने अपनी मर्जी से कह दिया है, अब हम कैसे करें, अब कैसे मान लें? एंड देन इट फ्लिप्स, बट नाउ थिंग्स आर डिफरेंट. Neurosurgeons have now found this black box is situated in and around Broca's area on the left side of the forebrain. Now, this black box is the area that contains universal grammar rules, which are unconscious and instinctive. Universal grammar rules, जहां पे reside करते हैं brain के अंदर, that area has been identified. Okay, unlike Mr. Chomsky, Mr. Pinker firmly places the wiring of the brain for language within the framework of Darwinian natural selection and evolution. Acha. This is the first point of distinction between. Uh, in the first paragraph, who is Mr. Chomsky? What idea did he propose? And then who is Mr. Pinker? Why did he write the book? How was his book different than what Mr. Chomsky wrote? Then in the second paragraph, the idea that they agree on, or third paragraph is getting into idea where they disagree. Unlike Mr. Chomsky, Mr. Pinker firmly places the wiring of the brain for language within the framework of Darwinian natural selection and evolution. He effectively disposes of all claims that intelligent non-human primates like chimps have any ability to learn and use language. वो बोल रहा है the ability to use language or the ability to communicate via words and क्या बताए verbal interactions. This is an evolutionary advantage. This is something that has happened to us over a period of time by genetic selection, evolution, जो भी काम चल रहा है. And he also says, भाई हमारे पास है, दूसरे प्राइमेट से नहीं कर पाएंगे, दूसरे प्राइमेट्स के पास ये एबिलिटी है ही नहीं. It is not that chimps lack the vocal apparatus to speak. It is just that their brains are unable to produce or use grammar. It is not that उनके पास मशीन नहीं है, ऐसा समझो. Even if you matlab chimps and whatever other primates, even if you were to give them the most advanced, dedicated, sophisticated machine, it is unlikely that they would be able to utilize the machine to its fullest potential. Not because the machine is inferior, it is because they do not possess the mental faculties to use it, which is what is being argued here. उनके पास vocal apparatus है, trachea है, larynx है, सब कुछ है उनके पास, but they don't have the क्या बताए evolved ability to interpret and communicate using language. Okay, it is just that their brains are unable to produce or use grammar. On the other hand, the language instinct, when it first appeared among our most distant hominid ancestors is human-like. Okay. Hominid ancestors must have given them a selective reproductive advantage over their competitors. Must have given them a selective reproductive advantage. Again, can you see? यहाँ पे this is इज्जत से theorizing only. This is इज्जत से theorizing only. You cannot prove it. You cannot prove it, but as a theory, you can of course float it. देखी जाएगी. So, according to Mr. Pinker, ध्यान देना. According to Mr. Pinker, this is not scientifically proven. This is according to Mr. Pinker. This is his opinion. The roots of the language must be in the genes. And there cannot be a grammar gene any more than there can be a gene for the heart or any other complex body structure. Mr. Pinker के हिसाब से the ability to use language, the ability to use grammar, the ability to communicate using words is something that is transferred via genes. क्योंकि evolutionary advantage है, reproductive advantage मिला था over competitors because we have this language instinct. But दिक्कत ये है, if you had a language-based gene, you cannot have a language-based gene or a grammar-based gene, just like you can't have a gene for a heart or any other complex body structure. अब ध्यान दो, why grammar is not really a body part, but what is being referenced here is this. Neurosurgeons have found this black box situated in and around Broca's area on the left side of the forebrain. They found this black box in that brain wala portion. So that part which controls our grammar is being referenced. अगर आप उस ब्रेन के उस पार्ट के लिए जीन के थ्रू इम्पैक्ट ला सकते हैं तो हार्ट के लिए भी ला सकते होंगे, लेकिन हार्ट के लिए तो कोई जीन होता नहीं है, तो ग्रामर के लिए कहां से जीन बन रहा है, वैसा रेफरेंस. This proposition will undoubtedly raise the hackles of some behavioral psychologists and anthropologists, for it apparently contradicts the liberal idea that human behavior may be changed for the better by improvements in culture and environment. And it might seem to invite the twin bugaboos of biological determinism and racism. इसके अंदर देखना, basically this would be in contradiction to the idea of behavioral psychologists and anthropologists who claim that with changes in environment and cultural settings that you are a part of, human behavior may be changed. Yeah, acha, nature versus nurture debate. The environment that you're in has a massive impact on how you grow up to be and what impacts you in life. ये behavioral psychologist and anthropologist का argument है. Mr. Pinker, when he's implying कि genes के basis पे language instinct transfer हो रहा है, effectively वो बोल रहे हैं environment की दिक्कत नहीं है, उसके ऊपर है. क्या बताए, आपके अंदर innate ability जो है वो genetically transfer हो रही है, evolutionary advantage दे रखा है. So वहां पे लड़ाई हो गई. Additionally, अगर आप बोल रहे हैं genetically आपके पास कुछ advantage, the ability to use language आ रहा है, this will also tangentially give support to people who claim certain races have genetic advantages over other certain races, which will lead to racism. The white man's burden, the white man is superior to the black man because of culture that he has and the works of fiction and literature that have been developed. वैसे type का. It is tangentially giving support to the idea of racism. Mr. Pinker के ideology and belief के अनुसार. लेकिन मिस्टर पिंकर ने खुद को बचाया. Yet, Mr. Pinker stresses one point that should allay such fears. While you can misinterpret it and take it to that extreme, Mr. Pinker is not on that fence. Mr. Pinker is saying something else. Yet, Mr. Pinker stresses one point that should allay such fears. Even though there are about 4,000 to 6,000 languages today, they are all sufficiently alike to be considered one language by an extraterrestrial observer. Okay, so effectively he's saying, while it is impacted by the genes that you're getting, the languages themselves are so alike that somebody who is outside of our system, somebody who is outside of Earth, somebody who comes in and he will see, koi English bol raha hai, koi Spanish bol raha hai, he'll think they're speaking the same thing, the same language. He's not understanding English, he's not understanding Spanish. For him, everything is alien language only, and it would seem as if they are speaking in the same language according to the extraterrestrial observer. So it's not like the race has led to superiority of language or inferiority of language. It is pretty much the same, but the language instinct, see what he's trying to say is the language instinct or the ability to use grammar rules is definitely passed on by genes. That is his theory. Yet genetically pass on होने के बावजूद there is no advantage disadvantage as such, because for an extraterrestrial observer all languages would seem alike. So it's not like just because you are a part of a certain race, you have superior language instinct and somebody else is part of some other race has inferior language instinct. We are all pretty much at the same level is where he's getting at. Okay. In other words, most of the diversity of the world's cultures, so beloved to anthropologists, is superficial and minor compared to the similarities. Racial differences are literally only skin deep. The fundamental unity of humanity is the theme of Mr. Chomsky's universal grammar and of this exciting book. While they do disagree on the origin, Mr. Chomsky doesn't place the credit of universal grammar rules that are present in our brains to evolutionary advantages. Mr. Pinker does. Yet, both of them are getting at the same idea, the universality of language being used and हर जगह ह्यूमैनिटी या ह्यूमन बींग्स के अंदर द एबिलिटी टू यूज इज प्रीटी मच आइडेंटिकल, देयर एबिलिटी टू इंटरप्रेट लैंग्वेज इज प्रीटी मच आइडेंटिकल, दे आर बोथ ऑफ देम आर नॉट इन फेवर ऑफ क्रिएटिंग डिफरेंसेस पर से. ओके, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, which of the following statement best summarizes the author positions about Pinker's book? Okay, anatomical developments like the voice box played a key role in determining language acquisition skills. ऑथर ने ऐसा कुछ बोला था क्या? ऑथर ने ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं बोला था. इनफैक्ट anatomical developments, the only reference here is, it is not that chimps lack the vocal apparatus to speak, it is just that their brains are unable to produce or use grammar. ये तो ऑथर का पोजीशन भी नहीं है, ये तो पिंकर का पोजीशन है कि इंस्टिंक्ट, लैंग्वेज इंस्टिंक्ट एवोल्यूशनरी एडवांटेज के फॉर्म में आया है ह्यूमंस के पास, और चिम्प्स के पास डिस्पाइट हैविंग द मैकेनिकल टूल्स टू कम्युनिकेट यूजिंग ग्रामर, दे डोंट डू इट बिकॉज देयर ब्रेन्स आर नॉट वायर्ड दैट वे. ऑथर ने तो इसके बारे में कोई ओपिनियन भी नहीं दिया. ऑप्शन बी, culture and environment play a key role in shaping our acquisition of knowledge. Again, this is a statement made by anthropologists. Option C, the evolutionary and deterministic framework of Pinker's book makes it racist. Again, this is not even the author's position, for it apparently contradicts the liberal idea that human behavior may be changed for the better by improvements in cultural environment, and it might seem to invite the twin bugaboos of biological determinism and racism. It might seem, if he genuinely believed it, it was author's position about Pinker's book, तो फिर खराब रहता. अच्छा, additionally, can we get to this idea? The author likes the book. The author really likes the book because last words he put, and of this exciting book. He likes the book. There is a positive emotion involved. अब इसके अंदर ही the universality of the language instinct counterclaims that Pinker's book is racist. In other words, most of the diversity, yet Mr. Pinker stresses one point that should allay such fears. Even though there are 4,000 to 6,000 languages today, they are all sufficiently alike to be considered one language by an extraterrestrial observer. In other words, most of the diversity of world's culture, so beloved to anthropologists, is superficial and minor compared to the similarities. Racial differences are literally only skin deep. The fundamental unity of humanity is the theme of Mr. Chomsky's Universal Grammar and of this exciting book. This has to be the answer. क्योंकि ये ऑथर का ओपिनियन भी नहीं है, ये ऑथर का ओपिनियन भी नहीं है, ये ऑथर का ओपिनियन भी नहीं है. The only opinion part comes from here. In other words, when he is trying to rephrase things. Answer has to be option D. Next question. Question 10. Question 10 is fun. According to the passage, all of the following are true about the passage about the language instinct, except that. Can we see option A and option D are negations of each other? Option A and option D are negations of each other. All intelligent primates are gifted with it. Not all intelligent primates are gifted with it. We are looking for which of the following are true about the passage except that. So which of the following is not true? Of course, A is the answer. Because यहाँ पे तो साफ-साफ लिखा ही था. It is not that the chimps lack the vocal apparatus to speak. It is just that their brains are unable to produce or use grammar. This is referenced in the passage. So this is false. All intelligent primates are gifted with it. ठीक है. The argument could be made, लेकिन ये तो मिस्टर पिंकर का ओपिनियन है, तो ये कैसे हो सकता है? भाई पैसेज के अंदर मिस्टर पिंकर के ओपिनियन बताएं. अगर वो नहीं हो सकता तो फिर क्या ही होगा? ये तो पैसेज के अंदर क्लियरली बताया हुआ है, न्यूरो सर्जन्स हैव आइडेंटिफाइड दैट ब्लैक बॉक्स यूनिवर्सल ग्रामर रूल्स. ये तो पैसेज के अंदर बताया ही है. ये भी मिस्टर पिंकर का ओपिनियन है. ये तो गलत है. एज इन ये भी मिस्टर पिंकर का ओपिनियन है, ये भी मिस्टर पिंकर का ओपिनियन है, सी को हटा दिया, तीनों मिस्टर पिंकर के ओपिनियन है, बट कम से कम ये मिस्टर पिंकर के ओपिनियन के अंदर भी फ्लॉ है, एज इन कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी टू मिस्टर पिंकर्स ओपिनियन है। एक तो नाम कितना प्यारा है, पिंकर, कोई पिंक था और कोई ज्यादा पिंक था। ओके, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द इंफॉर्मेशन इन द पैसेज, Pinker and Chomsky may disagree with each other on which of the following points: the inborn language acquisition skills of humans, the Darwinian explanatory paradigm for language, the language instinct, the possibility of universal grammar. Very, very straightforward. बस इस थर्ड पैराग्राफ की फर्स्ट लाइन ही पढ़ेंगे. Unlike Mr. Chomsky, Mr. Pinker firmly places the wiring of the brain for language within the framework of Darwinian natural selection and evolution. So, unlike Mr. Chomsky, if he is placing it within the framework of Darwinian natural selection and evolution, answer has to be option B, the Darwinian explanatory paradigm for language. Okay. Question 12. From the passage, it can be inferred that all of the following are true about Pinker's book, The Language Instinct, except that Pinker draws extensively from Chomsky's proposition. He does. उसने चॉम्स्की की मोर डिफिकल्ट साउंडिंग वर्ड्स को सिंपलर बना दिया है, बिल्कुल ठीक है. डिसएग्रीज विद चॉम्स्कीज ऑन सर्टेन ग्राउंड्स, रेफरेंस भी दिया है, एग्जांपल भी दिया है. व्हेन ही डिसएग्रीज विद मिस्टर चॉम्स्की ही टेल्स यू सो, एंड यहाँ पे अनलाइक मिस्टर चॉम्स्की द डिसएग्रीमेंट्स हैव आल्सो बीन रेफरेंस्ड. राइट्स इन अ डिफरेंट स्टाइल फ्रॉम चॉम्स्की, ये भी साफ साफ है. Since the message was couched in terms of Chomskyan theoretical linguistics in discourse so opaque that it was nearly incomprehensible even to some scholars, many people did not hear it. Now, in a brilliant, witty, and altogether satisfying book, Mr. Chomsky's colleague Steven Pinker has brought Mr. Chomsky's findings to every man. Chomsky wrote it in very technical terms. He writes it in everyman style, a style that can be consumed by masses. So he writes in a very different style from Chomsky. ये भी साफ साफ आ रहा है. Option D, draws from behavioral psychology theories. ये तीनों इतने सफाई से निकल रहे हैं, ये तो नहीं चल रहा है. साथ के साथ यहाँ पे फील्ड सच एज कॉग्निटिव न्यूरोसाइंस, डेवलपमेंट साइकोलॉजी एंड स्पीच थेरेपी ये बोला हुआ है. Therefore, the answer here has to be option D. Yo.